In today's world, particularly the eating disorder realm, anorexia tends to be glamorized, and a lot of people who have eating disorders almost have this wish or blatantly have this wish that they could have anorexia as opposed to their eating disorder. First, welcome to my channel, or welcome back to my channel. My name is Stephanie. I'm Long Island's eating disorder specialist. I talk about eating disorders, body image issues, and general mental health, and I post on this channel 3 times a week. If that interests you, please click the subscribe button down below. I also have a blog weekly blog and an Instagram. If you're interested in checking either of those out, I will leave those links in the description below. I remember hearing this stupid statement, and I believe, I hope I'm right, it was Meghan Trainor who said it, that something along the lines that she's not strong enough to have anorexia. And that is such an ignorant statement, and I'm not so sure that she meant it in any malice or anything like that. I think it's more along the lines of showing a problem in society at large, not really understanding the repercussions of an eating disorder. And this is something that we really need to confront entirely. But it just goes to show exactly what a lot of people with eating disorders, particularly more the bulimia type, have this wish on the back of their mind. And if this is something that you're experiencing, you are not alone. If you are familiar with anorexia or not familiar, basically it is a restrictive eating disorder where you restrict your caloric intake well below what you need to have to really live functioning properly. The thing is that anorexia tends to be glamorized in our culture. It tends to be the perfect example of willpower and strength and just being able to restrict yourself, and that's just pure, and this is a pure eating disorder. All these thoughts surrounding it, especially in the eating disorder community, is really, really dangerous because these things are just not true. The people who really struggle usually with this are the people who have the diagnosis of bulimia. If you're not familiar with bulimia, what it is, it's more along the lines of you have episodes of binging and purging, and the purging tends to be, either through vomiting or laxative use or diuretic abuse or just compulsive overexercise. So the purging part of it tends to be described as disgusting or gross, or the behavior is just deplorable or just nasty. So there's a lot of shame associated around the behaviors that are conducive to bulimia. And this is something that a person with bulimia is very aware of. So this is almost perpetuating the thought and the desire to have anorexia, the clean eating disorder, the pure eating disorder, the eating disorder that has a willpower to not eat. This is very, very dangerous because whether you have anorexia or whether you have bulimia, you are sick, you have an eating disorder, and they both come with very, very dangerous health consequences that could potentially be, is life-threatening, and potentially can really be unalterable, not able to turn it around. Basically meaning that these health consequences could be permanent and impact the rest of your life. Whether you are struggling with either anorexia or bulimia, they are both very dangerous disorders, and you need to understand that. So when I hear this from someone who is bulimic and they describe that they wish they had this belief that they want to be anorexic, I go through a few things. One, I just touched base on this. Eating disorders typically occur on a spectrum. You don't typically see textbook definitions of either disorder or any of the eating disorders. Usually a person throughout their lifetime of their eating disorder, it does change from more restrictive to binging and purging. And I'm not saying that the others don't exist, that people tend to be, more restrictive and some people tend to just be along the lines of more binging and purging. I'm not saying they don't exist, but more normally what you'll see is that the behaviors vary on this spectrum. So it's not usually a clear-cut anorexia textbook definition, and that's usually along the lines of what people wish that they could be. But that is very not as likely to actually be occurring as much as it is to be existing on the spectrum. So that's one thing. Another thing is that no matter what eating disorder you have, you are sick, you have an eating disorder, there are health consequences that can come as a result if it hasn't already. Just because you don't have a restrictive eating disorder doesn't mean that you are any less sick. And the next thing, just to be practical, let's just be real. What is glamorous about brittle bones, about hair loss, about developing lanugo, which is a fine hair along the skin that develops, especially if you have a restrictive eating disorder? It's basically an attempt for your body to keep yourself warm. So, going along the lines of that, what is glamorous about being cold all the time or the graying of their skin? What is glamorous about that, about rotting away? There's nothing glamorous about anorexia. Trust me. Let me just ask you a question to put things in perspective. God forbid, if you had breast cancer, are you going to wish that you had lung cancer? No, that's weird. You'd wish that you had no cancer at all. There's not one cancer that's more glamorous than the other. And the reason why I say it is because a lot of people view mental health as very differently than physical health, and mental health is more taboo, or it's just something that it just makes more sense that you could wish to be sick in a different way. But when you really compare it to physical health, you probably, when I said that about would you wish to have a different cancer, you're probably like, why would you even compare it? Because it makes sense. There would be absolutely no sense why you'd want a different type of cancer, just as it would make no sense to want a different type of eating disorder. So if you are struggling with this in the moment or ever struggled with it, please understand that no matter what, if you are struggling with an eating disorder, you are struggling with an eating disorder. There's no eating disorder that's more glamorous. There's no eating disorder that is more, that requires more strength, that has more willpower. There's nothing like that that actually exists in your head. That is your eating disorder that is trying to berate you, that is trying to just keep you sick. So the thoughts of wanting to have a different type of eating disorder, that is your eating disorder in and of itself, because a person who is healthy does not wish to be sick. I hope that you found this video helpful. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Leave a comment down below if you have any tips for a person who is suffering with these thoughts. You could click my face over here to subscribe to my channel, and I wish you understanding on your journey to finding your state of balance, and I'll see you in my next video.